In the early hours of May 24, 1941, precisely at 2:48 a.m., a British naval officer peered through his binoculars and caught sight of a sight that chilled him to the core. There, slicing effortlessly through the Denmark Strait, loomed an enormous battleship that dwarfed every vessel in the Royal Navy's fleet. The Bismarck had made its entrance, and mere minutes later, 6 in total, it would reduce Britain's cherished flagship to wreckage. Far more than a mere vessel, the Bismarck embodied 50,000 tons of Nazi ingenuity, crafted with a single ruthless purpose: to throttle Britain by obliterating every supply convoy traversing the Atlantic. Success for this behemoth meant famine for the island nation, and with it, the end of the conflict. The fate of the entire war hinged on neutralizing this formidable adversary. Yet the initial challenge lay in locating it amid 3 million square miles of vast, unforgiving sea. The saga of the Bismarck truly originated from Adolf Hitler's fixation on crafting the supreme battleship. Back in 1936, he commanded the creation of a floating powerhouse intended to render all rival navies irrelevant. What emerged was a colossal structure extending 800 feet in length, equivalent to roughly 2.5 American football fields. Its protective plating measured 13 inches in thickness. Equipped with 8 15-inch cannons, it could devastate any seafaring target from a distance of 22 miles. Upon its commissioning in 1939, the Reich's propaganda chief hailed it as Germany's crowning glory. Luxuries abounded on board, including its own onboard bakery, a dental clinic, cooling systems, and even a cinema for the sailors. The 2,200-strong crew believed they were stepping onto an impregnable bastion. Little did they suspect that within just 1 year, every last one of them would perish. Captain Ernst Lindemann grasped a harsh reality that Hitler's naval commanders refused to acknowledge. The Bismarck carried a critical vulnerability. It operated in isolation. Germany's fleet boasted only a sparse collection of capital ships, in stark contrast to Britain's arsenal of dozens. Should the Bismarck ever find itself trapped, it would confront the full might of the Royal Navy without support. In private conversations with his subordinates, Lindemann declared that they would either come home triumphant or never return. On May 18, 1941, the Bismarck set sail from harbor, embarking on what would prove to be its inaugural and final operation. Operation Rhine exercise aimed to penetrate the Atlantic and obliterate supply convoys carrying vital goods. The battleship Bismarck set sail alongside the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen, though it was clear to all that the Bismarck alone possessed the firepower to inflict devastating losses. Almost right away, British intelligence agents stationed in Norway detected the German vessels. The urgent alert that arrived at Prime Minister Winston Churchill's desk was stark and alarming. Bismarck is out. Legend has it, he turned ashen upon hearing it. He understood the peril. If the Bismarck made it to the vital shipping routes, it might dispatch as many as 50 merchant vessels before any force could intervene. With the United Kingdom already enduring severe food shortages under strict rationing, such an outcome threatened to deliver a knockout punch. In response, the Royal Navy mobilized its entire available fleet. The aircraft carrier Victorious joined battleships King George V and Prince of Wales, the renowned battlecruiser Hood, and a swarm of cruisers and destroyers, all racing toward the Denmark Strait. This pursuit marked the grandest naval chase ever undertaken. The Hood held a special place in the hearts of the British people, often hailed in the press as the Mighty Hood. For 2 decades, it had reigned as the biggest warship afloat. When the Admiralty dispatched it to confront the Bismarck, a wave of reassurance swept through the nation. They trusted the Hood to deliver victory. Little did they realize the vessel harbored a deadly flaw. Its deck plating was woefully inadequate. On the morning of May 24th, at precisely 5:52, the Hood and the freshly commissioned battleship Prince of Wales caught sight of the Bismarck. The British squadron unleashed the first barrage. Their projectiles churned the sea near the German behemoth, coming perilously close yet failing to strike. The Bismarck then unleashed its counterattack. The accuracy of the German fire was impeccable. On the third broadside, a 15-inch round pierced the Hood's vulnerable deck armor and ignited within its munitions storage. The ensuing catastrophe stunned every witness. Rather than simply going under, the Hood erupted in a cataclysmic blast. A towering inferno surged over 1,000 feet skyward. The ship split apart amidships. Within mere minutes, less than 3 in fact, the once mighty Hood had vanished entirely. Out of the 1,418 sailors on board, just 3 managed to live through the ordeal. The others perished alongside the vessel, sinking so rapidly that there was no chance to evacuate. The Prince of Wales, battered and facing superior firepower, withdrew from the fight. In a mere 6 minutes, the Bismarck claimed victory in its inaugural engagement. While the German sailors rejoiced, Captain Lindemann kept a somber expression. He understood that the full might of the Royal Navy would soon pursue them in retaliation. The loss of the Hood had turned the conflict into something deeply personal. Yet the Bismarck itself bore the scars of the clash. It had taken 3 direct strikes from the Prince of Wales, with one piercing a fuel compartment and causing a leak. Fuel poured from the Bismarck into the sea, much like blood seeping from an injured beast. Lindemann pressed to head back to harbor for fixes, but Admiral Gunther Lutyens rejected the idea. Their course would press onward into the Atlantic. That choice sealed their fate. Over the next 2 days, British cruisers tracked the Bismarck via radar, keeping a safe distance beyond the reach of its guns. Subsequently, on the 24th of May, an extraordinary event unfolded. The German battleship Bismarck abruptly veered around and barreled directly toward the pursuing British vessels. The enemy fleet dispersed in alarm, convinced an assault was imminent, yet it proved to be a cunning ruse. Amid the ensuing disarray, the Bismarck slipped into a stormy weather system and evaded detection for a full 31 hours. The Royal Navy had misplaced the globe's deadliest vessel, sparking widespread alarm at the Admiralty. The battleship might lurk in any direction. It could already be preying on merchant convoys, sending ships to the depths. Prime Minister Churchill insisted on reports every hour, as the strain mounted to intolerable levels. Salvation arrived from an unlikely quarter. A British radio specialist detected the Bismarck broadcasting extended signals. Unaware to the Germans, advanced British direction-finding technology could pinpoint these transmissions with precision. When Admiral Lutyens dispatched a half-hour message to Berlin, it effectively broadcast their location like a blazing beacon announcing, "This is our position." The British inferred the Bismarck was steering toward France, likely the harbor at Brest. However, a grave challenge loomed. Their vessels were critically short on fuel after the prolonged pursuit. Just one warship stood ready to strike, the carrier Ark Royal. Complicating matters, Its planes were outdated biplanes known as swordfish, relics that seemed suited to the battles of World War I rather than the conflicts of 1941. On May 26th, amid foul conditions, 15 swordfish aircraft launched to assail the Bismarck. The battleship's anti-aircraft defenses were optimized for swift, contemporary fighters, rendering the plodding swordfish frustratingly elusive targets for the German gunners to follow. 14 torpedoes veered wide of their mark, but the 15th struck decisively, slamming into the stern and locking the rudder firmly to port. In an instant, the colossal warship found itself tracing helpless loops across the sea, akin to a beleaguered beast, formidable yet trapped and vulnerable. Captain Lindemann recognized their doom. He addressed his sailors, declaring they would battle until the final round of ammunition, though victory lay beyond reach, and urged them to flee when the moment arose. Throughout the darkness, British destroyers tormented the impaired behemoth with relentless torpedo runs, forcing the fatigued German sailors to remain at their posts in perpetual readiness. At dawn on May 27th, the British battleships King George V and Rodney closed in. The confrontation that ensued transcended mere combat. It resembled a methodical slaughter. Commencing at 8:47 a.m., the British warships unleashed a barrage from a mere 4 miles distant. The Bismarck's fire direction mechanisms were crippled within the opening moments, leaving its artillery unable to train accurately. By 9:30, the vessel had become a flaming ruin, its 4 main turrets obliterated, the upper structure mangled into grotesque steel, and scores of crewmen slain or gravely injured. Yet the ship refused to yield to the waves. German craftsmanship had rendered it exceptionally resilient. Its armored plating sustained the hull even as the portions above the surface lay in devastation. The British unleashed more than 2,800 shells, a volume of ordnance that would have dispatched any other battleship thrice over. At last, the crew activated the seacocks, deliberately inundating the interior. At 10:39 a.m., the Bismarck capsized and plunged beneath the surface. From the 2,200 souls on board, only 114 endured. Captain Lindemann elected to share the fate of his command. Accounts from survivors described him rigid on the bridge, water surging around him, rendering a final salute as the vessel perished. Admiral Lutyens met his end as well, his remains lost forever. The Bismarck's odyssey at sea had spanned precisely 8 days. It had obliterated the Hood in a mere 6 minutes, yet it could not withstand the unified force of a full naval armada. Its demise signaled the close of the battleship's golden age. No further grand surface combatants of such scale would ever be constructed. The domain of warfare shifted to carriers and submersibles. In 1989, explorer Robert Ballard, the same who located the Titanic, uncovered the Bismarck's remains at a depth of 3 miles, where the hull endures mostly undamaged, its cannons eternally aimed upward in the echo of their final engagement. The saga of the Bismarck embodies extraordinary feats of design, hubris that proved lethal, and the ultimate pointlessness of confronting superior numbers in isolation. For 8 days, it reigned as the ocean's most dreaded predator, only to vanish abruptly, dragging 2,000 lives to the Atlantic's abyss. Its sole triumph, the Hood's destruction, also ignited its downfall. The moral rings true. No lone arm, however formidable, can secure victory in conflict by itself. The Bismarck shone with splendor, but solitude proved its Achilles' heel, a flaw impervious to the mightiest plating.